Welcome, everyone. I'm Magdalena, and it is a pleasure to have you at our iMindQ webinar dedicated to the topic of mind mapping usage in business. Our focus today is to discuss about how companies can use the mind mapping technique to optimize business processes and improve the operational. It is a great pleasure to introduce a special guest that will share his expert opinion on the topic, and now Hans Buskes.
Mr. Buskes is a business consultant who helps companies to improve business processes and bring their marketing and communication efforts to the next level, very often through the usage of mind mapping as a tool. He has been a mind map trainer for nearly 20 years and is a best-selling author of several books on mind mapping applied to business. His Dutch book was in the top 100 for almost a year, and he has also several English ebooks available through the Apple iBook Store. Mr. Buskes, thank you for joining us today. I would also like to ask my colleague Bojan to start the session because he will be our moderator for today.
Hello, everyone from my side as well. In short, I would like to inform you that this webinar is about how mind mapping can be used in business, how it can make a difference in your everyday work, add value to your products or services, and what is really important also, what are the challenges to implement it. I would like to inform all of you that you're free to post your questions during the webinar, to which our special guest, Mr. Buskes, will be delighted to answer. I think that we can start with the questions. First, what is really important, Mr. Hans? Could you tell us what is mind mapping and what is your definition of mind mapping?
Okay, thank you, Bojan. All right, when starting up iMindQ, next to the logo is the slogan Think, Invent, Visualize, Present, and Act. I think that sums pretty well up what mind mapping is. Let's check this in practice. Here is presented a map with 8 quotes of Steve Jobs. I would like to ask you, all of you, would you call this a mind map? Please send in your answers, just yes or no, with maybe one sentence why it is or why it is not. In my opinion, just putting words, or in this case quotes, in a spiderweb structure is not mind mapping. Mind mapping refers to the process in your brain, analyzing, ordering, and processing data. The mind map is the outcome of the process. So my definition of mind mapping would be, mind mapping involves processing of information in the brain, enriching these by, for example, info, data mining, association, and ordering, and finally arranging it in a visual way. The result is a nonlinear, radial mind map, and it can be used to communicate or as a knowledge management system. Now, let us check this out with a mind map. This mind map shows exactly what is in the definition. At a first glance, it may seem a bit comparable with the maps of Steve Jobs quotes. However, as you can see, the information has been processed. Presented are 6 cases how it has been dealt in a crisis situation. In detail, you see half of the map for clarity. The mind map has been ordered into ways how you can react, like open, transparent, like Sharapova did, or closed, non-transparent, as Clinton did in the Lewinsky case, or denying and using a spin and a frame, as Putin did. Added is how successful this approach typically is in practice, with the green button like, the red button dislike, or the dice in the case of Putin. Information has also been added in more detail about the handling of the crisis. For example, in the case of Putin, with respect to the Panama Papers, he used the spin, the money transferred to offshore companies were donations. And he used the frame, it's typical the West, trying to discredit Russia. So, Bojan, do we have already answers whether the Steve Jobs map is a mind map or not?
Mr. Hans, we got two answers on this question, which were one is yes, and the other user from the audience says he's not sure whether that is a mind map.
Okay. Well, that's a kind of 50-50, and probably that's, if you do a larger test, it is the same. However, whether it be a mind map or not, it's very clear that the mind map of Steve Jobs' quote does not add value, and is not a typical mind map you could use in a business application, whereas the mind map about the ways how to react to a crisis situation is. There is added value how to do that or not. Let's move to the second question.
Okay, now, as you mentioned, how long have you been using mind mapping, and what are the main reasons for using it?
Well, I've been using mind mapping now for 20 years. In all organizations I advise, mind mapping is one of my most important tools. For example, in the case of plans, be it a project plan, business plan, strategy plan, marketing plan, communications plan, or whatever. From my experience and many others, it is clear that bulky plans of sometimes 10 to 20 pages or more are not particularly effective. This triggered a visual revolution. You may have heard about the business model canvas. The complete business strategy is on one page. Mind mapping goes a way further than this, as you can see in the mind map of a communications plan. I will show now a film of this mind map plan so you can see in steps how it was made. The 1992 Earth Summit was the largest ever gathering of world leaders talking about global threats like climate change, land degradation, endangered wildlife, and many other world problems. Exactly 20 years later, they met again in Rio de Janeiro to tackle issues concerning sustainable development. Each country had a national platform to gather ideas to submit to this UN conference. This communication plan is how it was done for the Dutch government. As you will see in this film, a visual plan like this is easier to grasp, easier to comment on, easier to evoke creativity, easier to implement, and so on. Take, for example, the target audience, the second branch. In presenting this mind map and by dividing the target groups into usual and non-usual suspects, my client immediately asked to add women to the target audience because of the problem of gender inequality in the workplace, politics, and so on. In the next branch, the strategy is mapped, using various workshops tailored to the audiences mapped in the previous branch to collect ideas. A cross-medial strategy of all communications tool is used. Again, doing it in this way, it is much easier for all people involved to discuss and to give input. Last but not least, you can turn a mind map into a project plan and using it as an organic management system throughout the complete project. The targets and whether they are reached are now shown visually for your convenience, but in reality, it was managed in the project plan within the mind map. Bojan?
And Mr. Hans, this was a very interesting video that you have shown to us. I will proceed now with the third question, which would be, what are the key elements to make a mind map valuable in an organization?
Okay, I will do so, Bojan. For the ebook, A Practical Mind Map Tester, which is shown on the left, that I wrote with the excellent Belgian mind mapper Philippe Pacu, by the way, we developed a tester that is easy to use to evaluate how useful a mind map is on the basis of 5 performance criteria. Starting with a goal. A goal will help you focus on what you need to map in order to produce the desired result. As you might know from the book of Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I've been saying already a few things about the processing in your brain. It is absolutely necessary if you want to add value in a business to process and to enrich the information. Readability, the next one, is about how you package your content and how easily it is to unpack it for the reader. In the next map, you see a mind map, which is, if you study it, it's very valuable. It has a high, rich content, but I think all of you will agree that it is difficult to read. The better the packaging is, the easier it is for your client or consumer to read your mind map. And elements of good packaging are ordering, design, and how easy it is to navigate through the mind map. And you will see in this case that it's not so easy. Number 4 is maybe the most underestimated part of mind map. Whether a mind map is understandable for your customers or clients is related to the use of keywords, syntax, and semantics. With respect to keywords, avoid unusual, complex words or jargon. Watch words, match words to the targeted reader. Syntax refers to the structure and semantics to the meaningful relation between the words used. In mind maps found on the internet, the ordering, so the syntax, of keywords seems to be sometimes indiscriminate. Most of the time it renders your mind map unreadable. In a sentence you can change a few words and the reader might still understand what you say, what you have written. Because in a mind map only single words are used on the branches, most of the times if the syntax is not okay, it will render your mind map exactly unreadable. Because of that, I'm an advocate of a universally accepted mind map language.
Interesting. What is really important for most of the people in the business are, in your opinion, since you're an expert, what are the benefits and at the same time the challenges of implementing mind mapping in a business organization?
Yes, let's look into this. More and more companies use metrics to establish whether software is fit for use. In this mind map, you see 5 of the most important elements as defined by various studies: transferability, exchangeability, robustness, performance, and security. The first branch concerns the economics of the investment. In the next map, I will focus on challenges. Considering the scope of the webinar and the fact that I'm not a specialist on security, I will leave that one out. In the last mind map of the series, I will map the benefits. With respect to challenges, transferability immediately draws the attention. Mind mapping is not easy to master and not easy to transfer. As well from my long experience as trainer and consultant working with mind maps in companies, as well from studies, this is obvious. You see, making a mind map of the activities you plan to do on a particular day is not too difficult. However, live mind mapping a complex brainstorm in a company resulting in an effective map containing more than 200 branches, to give one example, is another matter entirely. The orange light for exchangeability refers to what I was earlier mentioning, the lack of a universal mind map language, as well as the lack of a universal file format. Now, don't worry. Adding the benefits in this map will reassure the most of you. The investment is low. Because of its unique structure, it is easy to understand, unless your syntax and semantics are poor, of course. It is easy to exchange within teams. It's a robust application, if you buy the right software at least. And I noticed in all companies where I introduced it, it improved the productivity, the creativity, as well as the quality of decision making.
Okay, so Mr. Hans, considering the benefits and challenges of implementing mind mapping in the real business, in your opinion, what is the future of mind mapping?
Well, first of all, having said something about the exchangeability, it would really help, certainly within businesses, to agree on a standard mind map language, just as we have in a normal language, agreement about syntax and semantics. It would be great to have that as well in a mind map. Second, it would be much easier if the exchange between competitive mind map software would be facilitated. Some people in surveys asking for a standard file format, that may be too difficult maybe for companies, but at least if the import-export functions would be more than it is now, it would help. Third, I think we really need effective training programs to arrive at better mind mapping cases for business applications. And with regard to the software, I would personally see a faster user interface for optimal usability. For example, helping with live mind mapping, brainstorm, and accelerating decision making. Enabling real-time collaboration is a must for any company. Adding interactive content functionality would not only make the mind map a visual instrument, but also a content knowledge management system. And I think it is very crucial in a company that there is a consistent cross-platform mind mapping, meaning that whether you mind map in the cloud, on your iPad or on the laptop, it should be the same everywhere.
I think that the next question would be very important for the audience. That is, in your opinion, as a multifunctional productivity tool, the mind mapping solutions, what are the best business?
Okay, I would say in this film you can see what applications companies hire me for, and they are ranked from most popular to least popular, and they keep asking me back, so this must be the real popular applications. Mind mapping is a very effective tool for all applications with respect to productivity, resulting in very visual plans that are easy to communicate within the company. Business plans, communications plan, strategy plans, marketing plans, whatever. The next is brainstorming. Using live mind mapping during brainstorms result in more and better ideas, and they are easier to filter. Did you know, by the way, that the name BlackBerry originated from a live mind map brainstorm? Analyzing situations, for example, a crisis situation using mind mapping, results in better decisions. I mapped, for example, all aspects of one of the biggest fires in the Netherlands that occurred in Delft on the campus of the University of Delft. Next is strategy. Strategy is very much about focus. The intrinsic value of mind mapping is focusing. So mind mapping is one of the tools to use to help strengthen your strategy. I applied mind mapping to map trends, the progress in projects, and to find new disruptive products. I will show you one of these beautiful mind maps about disruptive products. Last but not least, being a very visual tool, mind mapping is the preferred tool for presenting ideas, presenting plans, presenting progress, results, or whatever within the company. So the main applications are productivity, innovation, decision-making, strategy, and communication. Let's move to this mind map about disruptive product mind mapping. I promise to show you quickly how to use mind mapping to find a disruptive product. You may have heard from the Blue Ocean strategy. It is in essence about creating unique products in an uncontested market space. For example, iTunes and the iPad were Apple's Blue Ocean moves. I am using mind mapping to find those blue ocean spaces, dividing the map in such a way that 4 quadrants are obtained. On one axis goes the competition, on the other the demand. This one is a very complicated one, finding the ideal solution for quality control in pharmaceutical companies. So I won't discuss the map in detail, but of course you can send in your questions. And of course, to add to that, finding such a blue ocean product will earn you hundreds of thousands of dollars or even maybe much more than that.
Yeah, that's something that the businesses are actually trying to do at the moment nowadays. Okay, last but not least for the questions, I would like to ask you, what is your experience with our mind mapping solution, iMindQ, and what do you think of our mind mapping tool for improving the productivity in the companies?
Okay, Bojan, as you can see, I mapped my experiences with iMindQ in a so-called fishbone map. I think it already shows how versatile the software is. But beginning, I do want to stress the importance of the mind mapper. I defined mind mapping as processing information in the brain. So the mind mapper is, in my opinion, fundamental to the success of the mind map. Now about iMindQ. Let me zoom in on some of the indicators, such as update history. For a company buying software, it is crucial that it is here to stay. I have seen too many mind map software packages come and go. iMindQ was developed in 2009 and has since then updated the software almost annually. That builds trust. Another parameter is versatility. As you can see, and for the people who are using iMindQ, you can use it for mind mapping, presentation, project planning, collaboration, brainstorm, this fishbone analysis, or this blue ocean mapping, which I showed you previously. Next is stability. The last month I've been testing iMindQ on the Mac. Well, I had 0 crashes, 0 issues, and what I like in comparison with competitive software, the energy consumption is very low. Then about usability, I think it's very good to use for brainstorming and mind mapping. In the simple mode of presentation, it's very good as well. In a little bit more complex mode, it's a little bit more difficult. But least, if you consider, and that's probably the most important, the return on investment, I think mind mapping has a very high return on investment. The risks are low, the cost is low, and the productivity gain, or in this case of this blue ocean mind map, if you find such a product with a mind map session, it shows how powerful mind mapping can be.
Thank you very much for your good words, Mr. Hans. Now, I can notice that the audience have 2 questions regarding this topic that we're covering now. That we got today is one guest is one of the audience is asking Mr. Hans, can you give her more tips on how to build an effective mind map?
Yeah, that's a good question, because that's the whole issue of whether you can share mind mapping in business and whether people can read it very easily. What I think is very important is, of course, on the first place, the content. As I have stressed, that you have good content, that it is enriched, that the right data are there. But about putting this content in a mind map, it's crucial that the ordering is very good. And in a mind map, you use a hierarchical ordering of information. That's crucial. But what is also crucial is that if you go from the main branches in the center to the detailed sub-branches in the mind map, it's very important that you keep in mind that everything you map under a main branch is really related to this main branch. And not only that, but that it's, as I was speaking about semantics, that anyone who is reading these branches from the main branch to sub-branches and maybe further and further away, that is still readable and understandable what is being said. And to put one more tip to it, be very critical about the keywords you put on a mind map. Because the better the keywords are, the better the mind map is. Because a mind map is only using single words. These single words determine your complete story if you're going to give the mind map to somebody else.
Interesting. I hope that the listener or Mr. Henry Summers got the answer that he was looking for. And also, I would like to read another question that is from our listener Vivian Goldstrong, that is asking. She works in the NGO or in an NGO organization dealing with disadvantaged families, and she's interested about how can her organization benefit by using mind mapping.
Well, I'm not exactly familiar with the topic, but I would say is that in a case like that, that it is enormous important that you know what is related to this topic, disadvantaged families. And I'm not sure whether this to map the situation actually, or that it is, for example, to try to help these people and to communicate with these people. In that aspect, it is very important in the mind map that you show how you can reach these people with communications tool or whatever. And what I see in, for example, I did this kind of things for a municipality in the Netherlands dealing with people who live in poverty, is that doing such a process in a mind map makes you more creative how to reach the people, because this type of people are very difficult to reach, and what you could do to help them, because that's an element of mind mapping, that it's making you more creative, to map more creative things you could do in that case.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer, Mr. Hans. I would like to resume all. Thank you all for attending this webinar. Hans, thank you once again for being here for us and for sharing your thoughts on mind mapping.
It was a pleasure for me.
It would be great if all of you who were listening to the webinar found this inspiring to continue or to start using mind mapping in the organization that you work for. If you still have any questions for Mr. Hans, please email them to webinars@iMindQ.com, and we will make sure that Mr. Hans will answer them. And for all of you that are interested in getting more information about iMindQ, you can always visit our website, www.imindq.com, or send your inquiries to the same mail address I just mentioned. Thank you once again. Goodbye.